Chosen one, lock your attention on this message right now. That feeling in your spirit that something is about to shift. Do not push it down. God is not waiting anymore. What you have been praying for, what you have been carrying in silence, what you have been asking heaven to move on, the waiting is over. Not next month, not when the conditions feel right. Now. This is the moment the throne room has been building toward since before you were born. You did not find this recording by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. God did. This is a divine appointment written into the foundation of your story before your name was spoken into existence. You are standing at the edge of everything you were made for. Do not click away. Your future self is begging you to stay, because if you leave now, you leave before the decree. You leave before the verdict. And this verdict was prepared specifically for you. In the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the exact word God has released over your life right now. I am going to walk you through the evidence you have been too exhausted to see. The proof that what feels like an ending is actually a threshold. And at the close of this message, I am going to give you the declaration that seals this moment into permanence. Stay until the final word. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like inside your spirit. The atmosphere has not just been heavy, it has been pressing, like something enormous is right on the other side of a wall, and the wall is about to give way. Maybe you have been moving through your days this week, feeling like you are running out of time, though you cannot fully name why. Like a quiet urgency has been sitting in your chest that you cannot shake, no matter how busy you stay. Or maybe you woke up at 3 in the morning and lay there in the dark with your eyes wide open, feeling the weight of everything that still has not happened yet. Everything you were promised that still looks invisible from where you are standing. You feel like you are dying in the waiting, like something inside you is running out. And in that exhaustion, the enemy has started whispering a very specific lie. Listen to your thoughts right now. He is telling you that the reason heaven feels silent is because God has reconsidered you. He is replaying a specific moment in your mind. That moment last week when you said the wrong thing. That moment when you made a choice out of fear instead of faith. That moment when you stopped believing mid-prayer because the doubt was louder than the declaration. The accuser is telling you that because of those moments, you have disqualified yourself. He is telling you that what God said over your life has expired, that you waited too long, failed too much, and heaven has moved on without you. But I need you to hear what Scripture actually says about this moment. Romans 11:29 declares, "For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable." Listen to that. Irrevocable, not conditional, not reversible, not subject to your worst week or your heaviest failure. The calling God placed on your life cannot be undone by what you did or what you failed to do. The enemy has no legal authority to cancel what heaven has already signed. But here is the word that God is releasing right now. When he says you will die soon, he is not speaking of your body. He is speaking of the version of you that has been surviving in the wilderness, the version of you that has been rehearsing failure, the version of you that has been negotiating with doubt and making peace with delay. That version of you is being put to death by the hand of heaven. And everything God promised you, the restoration, the open door, the name cleared, the provision released, the relationship healed, it cannot come to life until that old version of you stops breathing. Think back to that moment this week when something in you let go. Maybe it was quiet. Maybe it did not feel significant. Maybe you stopped arguing with a thought you used to fight. Maybe you finally stopped trying to make something work that heaven had already removed from your path. You did not know it then, but that surrender was not weakness. That was the moment heaven was waiting for. That was the death. And this message is your resurrection announcement. The heaviness pressing on you right now is not the weight of punishment. It is the weight of transition. It is the pressure of one season collapsing so that the next one has room to rise. You are not losing. You are not forgotten. You are not at the end of your story. You are at the end of your delay. God said He will wait no longer, and neither should you. And now that the delay is dying, the question is not whether God is moving. The question is whether you are ready to stop being who you were in the waiting. Because here is what most people do not realize about seasons of breakthrough. They spend years preparing for the open door, but when it finally swings wide, they walk through it still wearing the identity they built to survive the closed one. They carry the posture of the wilderness into the promised land. They bring the scarcity mindset into the season of abundance. They receive the blessing, but refuse to release the burden, because somewhere in the silence of the waiting, the burden became familiar, and familiar started to feel safe. Jacob, whose very name meant deceiver or supplanter, had lived a life marked by evasion and cunning. He had spent decades fleeing the consequences of his past, the ghost of Esau's fury perpetually at his heels, the shadow of his own manipulative nature haunting him. He was a master strategist, always finding a way around, a way to control, a way to secure his own future through his own strength and wit. But on that pivotal night at the ford of Jabbok, as he stood on the precipice of reconciling with his past and stepping into his future, God intercepted him. This wasn't a gentle whisper in the night. It was a raw, visceral, all-night wrestling match, a divine encounter that bypassed all of Jacob's practiced defenses. The messenger of God didn't arrive to simply grant passage or whisper assurances. Instead, he engaged Jacob in a physical and spiritual confrontation designed to dismantle the very foundation of his self-reliance, his old way of moving through the world. Genesis 32:24-32. The breaking of his hip was a profound symbolic act. It wasn't merely a physical injury, it was the shattering of Jacob's independence, the end of his ability to outrun, outwit, or outmaneuver by his own power. From that moment forward, every step he took would be a reminder of his encounter with the divine, a testament to his reliance on God rather than his own strength. He could not carry the old, self-sufficient, striving Jacob into the promised land, into his new destiny as Israel, one who struggles with God and prevails. The limp was an indelible mark, a sacred scar, a permanent shift in his gait, and more importantly, in his heart. It was a visible sign of his vulnerability, a constant humility, and a living testimony to the profound internal transformation that had taken place. He would never again be able to stride confidently on his own terms. Instead, he would lean into God with every step. This wasn't a flaw. It was the very proof of his new identity. The pressure you have been feeling is not God resisting you. It is God wrestling with the part of you that has to be renamed before the next chapter opens. But here is where it goes deeper, and this is the part that tends to unsettle people. The thing that often gets renamed is not what we expect. We expect God to change our name from broken to healed, from rejected to accepted, from invisible to seen. And He does all of that. But there is something else He renames that we rarely talk about. He renames the story we have been telling about why we are not there yet. You have had a story. Everyone does. A story you have been telling yourself and probably others about why the promise has not come to pass. Maybe the story sounds like wisdom. Maybe it sounds like patience or humility. Maybe it sounds like, I am waiting on God's timing, when underneath it is actually, I am afraid that if I step forward and it does not work, I will not survive the disappointment again. Maybe it sounds like, I am not ready, when what it really means is, I do not believe I deserve it yet. Maybe it sounds like, there are still things I need to work through, when the truth is you have been using self-work as a reason to stay small, because smallness has never betrayed you the way hope once did. The story is protecting you from something, but it is also imprisoning you inside it. And what is coming next will likely challenge something you have not examined in a long time. Stay with me, because here is what the Most High is doing right now in your specific season. He is not adding to your life before he subtracts from it. He is not going to pour the new into the space where the old still occupies every corner. Scripture records in Joshua that before Israel could possess the promised land, every single person born in the wilderness had to be circumcised at Gilgal. That is not a comfortable image. That is the image of a people who had just crossed the Jordan, who could still hear the miracle echoing in their ears, being asked to stop, to become vulnerable, to enter a moment of temporary weakness right at the threshold of everything they had been waiting for. They could not fight in that condition. They could not advance. They had to wait in their healing before they could walk into their inheritance. And God called that place Gilgal, which means the reproach has been rolled away. You are at your Gilgal. The reproach of the waiting, the reproach of the wilderness years, the reproach of every person who looked at your life and questioned whether God was really there, it is being rolled away. But you have to let the cutting happen first. You have to let him remove what you have been holding on to that is not authorized to cross over into what is next. This brings us to something most people miss entirely, and it is the piece that keeps people celebrating messages like this one and then waking up the next morning in the exact same place they were before. The cutting God is doing is not always cutting away sin. Sometimes it is cutting away the good things that became substitutes for the real thing, the community that became a hiding place, the ministry that became an identity instead of an assignment, the routine of seeking God that replaced the actual intimacy with Him, the comfort of being known as someone who is believing for a breakthrough more than actually being someone who walks in one. There is a version of faithfulness that is actually fear in a Sunday morning outfit. And God sees the difference even when we do not. Coming up, the hidden agreement you made with your delay, the one you never consciously chose but have been honoring every day. That is the one that has been quietly locking the door from the inside. Stay with me, because this is where the cycle actually breaks. The agreement is this. At some point in your story, probably during one of the hardest moments, one of the moments when you reached out and the answer did not come the way you needed it to, you made a quiet, unspoken settlement with disappointment. You did not choose bitterness. You are not a bitter person, but you chose something just as binding. You chose managed expectation. You lowered the ceiling on what you allowed yourself to believe God would actually do. Not for everyone, not in Scripture, but for you, specifically, in this life, in this body, on this timeline. And it felt mature. It felt like wisdom. It felt like you were protecting yourself and protecting God from the embarrassment of an unfulfilled promise. But what it actually did was place a ceiling on your capacity to receive what heaven had already authorized. The prophet Elisha confronted this exact spirit in the king of Israel in 2 Kings. He told him to strike the ground with arrows, and the king struck 3 times and stopped, and Elisha was angry. He told him he should have struck 5 or 6 times. He stopped not because God stopped. He stopped because he was only willing to believe for a partial victory. He had capped his own deliverance, and the measure of his striking became the measure of his breakthrough. Where have you stopped striking? Where have you settled for 3 when God said 6? Where have you called partial progress enough because full possession felt like too much to hold on to? Because the decree heaven is issuing over your life right now is not a partial one. It is not a scaled-back version of what you used to believe. It is the original word, full measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. But you have to be willing to strike the ground, all the way to the floor. And yet, beneath even that, there is one more layer. And this is the one that tends to break people open in the best possible way when they finally see it. The deepest block is not your doubt. It is not your past. It is not even the agreement you made with disappointment. It is something that hides underneath all of those things and actually uses them as cover. It is the subtle, deeply buried belief that your transformation is primarily about you, that your breakthrough is primarily for you, that the thing God is doing in your life is a private transaction between you and heaven. But you were not built for a private story. Every promise God has spoken over your life carries inside it the weight of someone else's deliverance. The business is not just about your provision. It is about the jobs, the resources, the access that flows through you to people who have no other way in. The healing in your body is not just about your comfort. It is about the testimony that will reach the person who has been told their case is too far gone. The restoration in your family is not just about your peace. It is the generational reset that stops a cycle from being handed to children who have not yet been born. The enemy has been convincing you to shrink your expectation down to a personal transaction size because he knows that the moment you understand the magnitude of what is attached to your life, you will stop negotiating. You will stop settling. You will stop calling 3 strikes enough. You will begin pressing with the kind of urgency that does not apologize for its intensity because it is not pressing for comfort. It is pressing for assignment. It is pressing because someone on the other side of your obedience is waiting and they do not have the luxury of your delay. This is where the real transformation begins. Not in the moment you get what you have been asking for, but in the moment you understand why you were asking for the wrong version of it. God is not withholding from you. He has been expanding the container you are becoming so that what He pours in does not immediately spill out into nothing. The delay was the preparation. The pressure was the shaping. The silence was the surgery. And the you that emerges from this season is not the version of you that gets the blessing and collapses under it. It is the version of you that was built to carry it all the way to the people it was always meant to reach. And here is the part that perhaps you did not expect. The most unexpected thing God will ask of you on the other side of this threshold is not more sacrifice. It is not more striving. It is not a higher level of performance or a more impressive level of discipline. The most unexpected thing He will ask of you is to receive without apology, to walk into what He opens without shrinking at the door, to stop treating abundance like a test and start treating it like a trust. Because the person who cannot receive cannot give. And God needs you to become someone who gives at a level the world around you has never seen from you before. So stop making yourself smaller to make other people comfortable with your faith. Stop qualifying your expectation with disclaimers. Stop adding "not my will, but thine be done" to prayers that God has already answered yes to, as though you are afraid of being presumptuous when heaven is trying to release something enormous through your open hands. You were chosen before the foundation of the world, not because you performed well enough, not because your faith has been flawless, but because God looked at everything you would ever be and ever do and ever walk through, and He chose you anyway. He designed the assignment before He designed the vessel, and then He designed the vessel to survive carrying it. This moment right now is not the beginning of something new. It is the unveiling of something ancient, something that was always yours, something that was held in heaven with your name on it until you were ready to stop arguing with it. You are ready. Place your hand on your heart and declare this with me. I release every agreement I made with delay. I release the story I told about why I was not there yet. I release the managed expectation, the lowered ceiling, the fear dressed up as wisdom. I release the version of me that was built to survive the wilderness. That version is finished. That version has served its purpose, and it is done. I receive the name God has spoken over me before I was born. I receive the assignment that is larger than my comfort and wider than my understanding. I receive the blessing that was not just for me, but for everyone attached to my obedience. I will not strike 3 times and stop. I will press until the floor gives way. I will walk through the open door without apologizing for the miracle. I will carry the weight of this calling not as a burden, but as a privilege. I am not at the end. I am at the threshold, and I step forward now knowing that what is on the other side of this moment has been waiting longer than I have. I am seen. I am chosen. I am ready, and I will not look back. If this message has broken something open in you today, do not let this moment slip into just another video you watched. Write in the comments the one word that describes what you are releasing right now. One word. Let it be your declaration. Let it be the marker that says, I was here when the shift happened. Because your breakthrough becomes a testimony that reaches someone else who is still in the waiting, and they need to see that the door actually opens. Share this with someone who has been carrying the weight of delay in silence. You may not know why you feel led to send it. Send it anyway. That is how divine appointments work.